Welcome to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. I'm Danny.
I'm DJ.
I'm Adri.
I'm Ale.
So this is our first show. How do you guys?
I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
We have so many topics.
So many great topics. Yeah, right.
And I'm the only one within like the entire show that's actually ever done like the hosting of this. So we have 3 brand new hosts here.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for you guys to be able to experience this from this perspective and to get to interact with the people that listen to us.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Because for me, I was so used to being on like behind the scenes on the radio show last year. Like,
you were actually in it, right?
And I was more like on the social media side, and I just never saw myself as like being a host or whatever. So to be actually doing this with you guys is pretty cool.
I know, yeah.
And we have a huge brand new team, and it's
it's big now, right?
Yeah, because we used to have to do everything by ourselves, and now we have specifically people for production and social media.
Yeah, and it just eases up all the work, that we have to do, that our teacher gives us,
I think it's easier for us to cooperate and just have people to depend on for other things.
Yeah.
We've all been doing really good. We've all helped out with the script, etc. And it's all been really good.
And I think what's a big help too is that we're able, as hosts, to focus more on like topics and stuff. That I'm able to like focus solely on this job.
Yeah, that way everyone's not spread out like too thin. Everyone.
But at the same time, we are positioned to where we all know each other's jobs. So if someone were to be out, we could fill in, or somebody could fill in for us, or anything could happen. So we're kind of like more universal.
Yep, and it's been working very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So aren't we gonna introduce all the production team?
So yes. So coming into studio next, we're gonna have the people that are working behind the scenes to make sure that the sound and everything runs smoothly. And so this is our production team, and we're going to ask them to introduce themselves to you guys.
Yeah, and say a couple words.
Hi, my name is Des, and I'm part of production.
Hi, my name is Breezy, and I'm also part of production.
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm also part of production.
Hey, my name is Coach, and I'm also a part of production.
I'm Triple E, and I'm also a part of production.
Oh yeah, Triple E.
And then, so we have the host, production, and then we also have our amazing social media team that's in charge of, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and all of that. So they're going to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, my name is Ari, and I'm part of social media.
Oh. Next one.
My name is Bobby, and I'm part of social media.
And my name is Leo, and I'm part of social media as well.
Triple E again, I'm also part of social media.
Ooh, you can see Triple E.
Hi, and I'm Chino, and I'm part of production too.
Yeah.
So this is our whole team.
This is our whole team.
These are people you're never gonna see.
Yeah, it's a couple of people. You might even see some of them. From time to time we might get Coach in here. Talk about some sports news. Yeah, we might even have Braulio, right? Sometimes if somebody's out, So
you're gonna see them blend them.
You'll see them sometimes.
And so now you know people that you'll be hearing every week, as well as people that are behind the scenes and working to make sure that we bring you the best content and the best show possible.
Yeah, even sometimes we might have Spanish shows, with Breezy, and so be excited for that, Yeah.
And we're gonna start having guests on our show. So it's not just gonna be us. We're gonna be interviewing people, and also Dr. Hinojosa later in the year.
Yeah. So we're gonna be having a lot of different people from the community, and we're gonna get insight into just about their personal lives and how they feel about us having this kind of platform in order to talk to people about things.
Because I feel like even though this is we're all students in this school, I think it's important to bring people from the community to talk about just different issues, where they come from. Because as students, those are the role models that we want to look up to.
Yeah. And I think that's what the show is about. A lot of people have been asking me, well, what do you guys talk about? Well, to answer your question, we talk about literally everything on the show. We talk about student-related things, war-related things, national-related things. Anything that you want to hear about, we will talk about it, because we want to make sure we have a wide platform fit for everybody, not just for a certain demographic of people.
And don't get me wrong, we accept suggestions, of course. Anyone that has suggestions, we're open to hear them out.
To talk about.
Yeah. And I'm actually liking this little preview, telling our audience what we're gonna talk about, Yeah. What's the show gonna be about?
Yeah. I think we've been preparing this for so long that we're just ready to show.
Yeah.
Go at it full time.
It's finally time for everyone to kind of come together.
Yeah.
Okay, so really, what we're first going to talk about is our first topic is about Bob McNair and the Texans.
Oh.
So recently, he has made a comment in a meeting saying that he doesn't want the inmates running the prison. And most of the NFL players and a lot of people took it to offense when he said this, basically because they felt like he was making a racial slur. And how do you guys feel about that?
I actually didn't think that he was actually making a racial slur. You know, I actually thought he was just, you know, it was just a coincidence that they happened to be, you know, African American, you know, and I feel like people are just in these past few days, people have just been, you know, I guess thinking about that. That's all they've been thinking about, racial wars, you know. That's my thoughts on it. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
I don't know, because I mean, okay, so he stated this in a professional, you know, a professional meeting where a lot of, you know, media from ESPN, which is a huge network, is there. I think he should have. When you go to those kind of meetings, you're supposed to kind of be stepping on ice a lot of the times, and he should have been more aware of what he said. And I mean, it's also good that he recognized, you know, that what he said.
Yeah, but like, didn't he have to prepare for it? You know,
Yeah,
like he surely did have to prepare for it. So did he? So while he was preparing, he actually thought that was okay to say. You know.
Well, I don't know if when he was preparing his script or his notes that he actually wrote that quote down or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say this.
Especially because he knew all of these important media people would be there, as well as just even if no one's there, when you're talking to your players, even though like you're the owner and technically you are above them and have more power than them, you shouldn't ever talk to them that way or go in there planning to talk down to them.
Personally, I think that even though he said he regrets what he says, I still think he feels like he owns them.
Yeah.
Because even though, you know, you can say I didn't mean it, I think he did mean it, and I think he feels like he does own these people because that's their jobs.
Yeah. He basically he has the money. You know, he's saying I have the money, I have the power. You know. So, like, I mean, I just feel that that's no way to talk to somebody. You know, to a human being.
In that kind of condescending manner.
Yeah. I guess.
How do you think other coaches will relate to this?
I think that because Bob McNair received kind of like a backlash. It kind of serves to prove for other coaches that, you know, for behind the scenes, because I'm pretty sure that other coaches kind of say these kind of things with their players or are condescending. Yeah. And I think it shows to prove that this isn't okay. That the public, when they see this, that they understand that this isn't okay and they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't think any other coach is going to come out and say, "Oh, I talk to my players like that too, so it's actually okay." But when they see all of this in the media and see like how everyone's reacting to it, they realize that even if there aren't, you know, reporters from ESPN there's always a chance that one of your players or multiple could come out and be like, "This is what they're talking. This is how they're talking to me, and we have an issue with it." So I think it's just going to make everyone more aware of what they're saying and how it can be taken.
Yeah.
Because obviously he came out right after the article came out because he received all that hate, and he was like, "Well, I didn't mean it in the way that everyone is taking it." And I mean, obviously that could be true, but it's going to make everyone a lot more aware of how they're stating things and making sure they say what they really mean.
Yeah, especially lately, you know, where media just takes control of everything. You say something wrong, you know, it just turns it into a whole hot mess, you know? Yeah. And isn't there actually going to be walkouts? You know, didn't I hear something about that?
Yeah, I heard there was going to be walkouts. A lot of teammates said they were going to walk out because of what he said. But the star receiver, DeAndre, he did leave. But he's the only one that we know of.
Yeah.
Oh.
Other football stars said they were going to, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But it may just be a threat at the same time and not like
it's like a strike, you know?
And I think that all the speculation about walkouts is just to prove that they don't approve or appreciate the way that the statement or the way that it was stated to them.
I mean, imagine if like your principal or your teacher told you that they owned you and you couldn't do anything. But you have to do it their way, you know? Yeah. You would feel like imprisoned, and you feel, you know, less valued.
Can I go to a counselor's office? Yeah, like right now.
And in this case, like you don't have a counselor, you don't have anyone to go to, and then you know, in their form, that's
They
their
have
way of
media.
Yeah.
They really don't have a counselor, you know.
And like DJ was saying, in any context, this kind of statement and kind of condescending matter isn't okay.
Yeah.
So even if you take away, you know, the race and everything that's been going on in the NFL, even if this was a completely different situation, but the same statement was said, it still, I think, would have this kind of backlash because it still isn't okay.
Yeah, it really isn't okay. And I actually don't understand why people are bringing racial, I guess you can say, how do I say that?
Like,
they're bringing race into this. Yeah, they're bringing race into this. Yeah. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Why do you think people are bringing more race into certain topics?
I think the reason behind it is because the main people who are targeted by this comment are in the minority group are African American, and the whole reason behind this is because of the protest, and the protest is because of the way African Americans have been treated in America. And then you have to understand another thing is that imprisonment and things such as you being an owner or such as a slave, it is all connected to being African American or minority. And minorities have always struggled with that issue, and to talk to someone like their minority, I think that's where the race comes into it.
Yeah.
He didn't necessarily say, you know, you're black, but you kind of thought, it was the thought behind it that you understood.
It was just the history that kind of dynamic has with the African American community. And even like during the meeting, this whole meeting was to talk about how, you know, players in the NFL are kneeling for the pledge or refusing to stand for the pledge, and he was talking to his team about his thoughts about it, and I also think that's why people are connected to get to race, because race is a lot of the reason why people are kneeling. Because of the way different groups are being treated. So then he in a way is kind of proving their point and proving why they were kneeling in the first place.
And how do you actually feel about the kneeling? You know, do you agree with them? Do you disagree? You know?
I agree.
I agree too. I can say I agree.
Because I think that the flag stands for a lot of different things for different people. But for me, like, it represents like the freedom that we have. And so I think that you have the freedom to choose whether you want to stand or kneel for it.
Yeah.
You have the and as an American, you have the right to be able to choose what you want. What you like to do.
We have a voice, and I think that's what America's trying to devalue is our voice and the way that America's.
I like that.
the way that America is set up is to where even if your opinion is unvalued or not as popular as others, you can still share your opinion. But at the same time, it's kind of like a borderline between sharing your opinion and making it forced upon people and making them feel bad about something.
And I can say I agree with the kneeling, you know, but I won't say I would do it. You know, what I do most of the time is I would stand up for the pledge, you know, but most of the time I don't put my hand in my heart, you know. I can say I do stand up for it because I also value the people that lost their lives for this country, you know. I can say I really value that. Like, I mean, you know, because of them is why we have freedom in the first place. You know, and that's just my thoughts on it.
And then the thing is, it's like when you kneel, it's like, you know, a lot of these football players, you know, they're focused on like, you know, reaching out to the world and saying like, hey, we feel oppressed, we feel like minorities, and we feel like our voice isn't being heard. And then some might take it like, no, you're not kneeling because of that reason. You're kneeling because you're offending these, you know, our troops and all this stuff where like, you know.
And that's how some people are taking it, you know, it's our troops, you know, and, you know, I can see where they're coming from, you know, don't get me wrong, I can see, but, you know, not everything's black and white, you know, put it simple as that, not everything's black and white, not everything represents what exactly we're going for.
Well, I think the whole flag portion is our salute to America and not to the troops. Now, I feel like the moment of silence is the part where we, you know, dedicate our time to the troops, and we, you know, take a moment of silence for all the troops who are alive and the troops who are dead. But for the flag portion, I feel like it's America as a whole, and us, you know, talking to our government and to our Constitution and things of that nature.
And I think that because these athletes have the platform that they have and they have the following that they have, it is important for them to come out and say, I don't necessarily agree with what you guys believe the flag stands for.
Yeah.
But instead of like, like rioting, doing things like that, they're just kneeling. It's very like peaceful it's as peaceful as it can be.
Yeah.
Do you think our president had like anything to do?
Oh yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up. I was about to like go bring up my little conspiracy theory. I'm probably gonna be the biggest conspiracy theory person here. I always try to make something. I guess you can say our president has been stirring up a lot. He has been, especially since he brings race into everything. He brings race into everything that he puts into our country. That he talks about.
Yeah.
I know that he was on Twitter a lot saying, anyone that doesn't stand for the pledge in any, not just in the NFL, but in any kind of sports, they should be fired immediately.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because he very much believes that everyone should be standing for it as a sign of respect. And I think that when, whether it's President Trump doing that or it's, this owner, Bob McNair, that anytime you're telling this group that they have to stand, you are just proving their point as to why they're not. Because you're trying to strip away their freedom to choose.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And I feel like our president, how do I say this in a nice way, is like an outspoken person.
Yeah.
So, he likes to say a lot of things, whether it's an unpopular decision or a popular decision. And I feel like that people like Bob McNair are more willing to stand up and voice their opinion.
Yeah.
Whether the majority of
Americans,
you
can clearly see,
And one of
not like it.
And one of the biggest difference is, Bob McNair actually came out and said, well, it's not actually the way it seems, and I actually don't believe, in that kind of dynamic, as opposed to Trump, who just puts his opinions out there and it's take it or leave it.
But you have to understand that this is just Bob McNair. There are other actual people out there who do believe in that saying, who are on his side on this, who think that it was okay for him to say that, that they take his side on it. They believe like he wasn't wrong, he shouldn't have to apologize for it, and things of that nature.
And one kind of point I want to bring up is like, we talk about this in the big spotlight, with big celebrities, football players that do this kind of like I don't know, like rebellion. But how do you see it when students do that in school? Like when students don't stand up for the pledge, when they don't say the pledge, or when they just sit down, and then teachers kind of like make a big deal out of it, and because like it's not like they can't tell you, you're not forced to do it.
Yeah, it isn't mandatory, and I don't even know if we we should be but how I feel about it, I feel that we have the right, students have the right, to show what they feel, and that's my thoughts on it.
I think that whether you're a student here at Townview or you are a big NFL superstar with a huge following and platform and audience, your choice and your freedoms are still the same. So I think that you should still have the choice to be able to stand or not, as long as no one is like during the pledge being disrespectful in any way. Like as long like if you're just very peacefully just sitting, you're just kneeling, or doing whatever it is that you stand for, you believe in, then I don't think there should be an issue with it.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna ask you guys, what do you guys think Bob McNair actually felt bad for saying this? What caused them to actually apologize?
I mean, because I think because obviously he said it. He didn't think that it was gonna be taken like in that manner.
Yeah.
And I think
it was gonna be
like,
blown up.
Yeah, and he was like, he was like, they do have it. I think he responded because he knows that the people who like backlashed on him, that they did have a reason for finding that what he said offensive, and then it wasn't right.
Probably like
social media had a big thing a part of this because when you're on social media, you're sitting behind a screen and you can say whatever you want to say without any real consequences. And I think that's the problem we have with now. Later back when Jim Crow was a thing and people were protests, you put your life on the line. It wasn't a simple fact as something typing on the screen and just letting everybody rant about it. And I think with social media now, it's kind of like a middle ground or a safe place for people to backlash or talk about or protest against things without any
that's how you get the word
consequences.
out. That's how you get the word out. And that's really what media in sports has been really about. In sports, you go into sports and ABC News. Trust me, you don't see the scores anymore.
It's all the controversy just because
social aspect of the
just
sport.
because you know social media in the recent years has become such a huge platform, and as soon as ESPN put out this article that had this statement, people immediately saw it and immediately were offended or wanted to voice their opinions about it, and I think that's a big reason why Bob McNair was so quick with his apology, because before the article was out there, there were no apologies. But I think that if he knew kind of the context, how everyone else was going to do it, he would have apologized beforehand. It was said maybe at a press conference, like in a recent meeting with my players, I said something that I shouldn't have. He should have put himself in front of the issue. Yeah,
he probably woke up one day and like he was blown up all over the news. You know, he was like, "What's going on?"
Or just in a matter of hours, because social media, the way social media is linked up is that, you know, if you see one thing, it can just get retweeted or reposted, and everybody comments in just seconds. And so it's a vast majority of people talking at one time and having the same opinion or a different opinion. And I think that's what really stirs people up, because you know you can't really do anything about it when somebody's sitting behind a screen.
And then I know some people who might have just seen this headline or seen just this statement and didn't care about the context of it, and just kind of ran with this portion of it and just said, "Oh, he's this horrible person. He's racist and offensive, and look at this," and kind of put him in a situation that he couldn't have been aware that he was going to be in.
I feel like Bob McNair put himself in a bad situation, like popularity wise. I think that he's going to be in the media more, but the way that he is viewed, it's going to be very different from now on. I think he can never be the same person that he was before.
Yeah, and imagine how his players feel. How do you think his players actually feel? You know, what do you guys think about his players?
They won't be viewed the same either, and I think they have they had respect before, but I feel like the respect has been broken. Yeah. And it's going to take a long time for someone to gain respect for somebody else. It may be easier for other players to forgive. It may not be so easy for other players. Some players may never forgive. Yeah. But at the same time, when you say things like that, you have to take into precaution not just the backlash, but how your players feel and how everyone feels about it. And I think the connection between him and his players is broken. It's broken, and it's more important than what I think or what you think. Yeah.
And I think that when there is something like this, or even going back to the people that are kneeling or standing, whenever they're watching the game, you're kind of, obviously you're focusing on the football game and who's winning, but you're also kind of in the back of your mind is like, that player didn't stand, or that player did. And now with the Houston Texans, when the people watch the games, they're going to say, well, they have a problem with this, and they didn't. And it kind of makes the game more than just people. Football. Yeah, it's more than just
people running after a ball. You know?
Yeah, it's now about the actual people and what they believe and what they're doing with their platform.
Yeah, and do you think that that's actually going to change football, you know, forever? Or do you guys think this is
there's some people that don't like to get into the politics of anything, and they're just going to watch the game, they're going to root for them, or they're not, and it's just they're just going to do it just
the game.
Yeah, just for like their stats or whatever. But there are going to be some people that are informed about all these different things going around that are kind of going to be, it's going to change it a little bit, but I don't think that the game as a whole is going to be different.
Yeah, but and I think this is one of those things that are always going to be remembered. This protest is not going to be something that you forget about. It's going to be re-mentioned throughout football history and throughout just regular history. Like when we think back, think back in 2017 when we had this whole protest.
Kneeling on the ground.
Your kids are gonna be like, "You're so old. What's 2017?" So I don't know.
Oh, what's a TV?
Because
because
this is kind of like our revolution of this year of our time. So this is always going to be our big thing. Was in 2017, this is how people were kind of showing their beliefs and protesting against what they didn't believe in.
Yeah,
I've heard the saying that says the revolution will not be televised. But I feel like with media now, I feel like our revolution is televised a lot.
That's all it is.
It's at least on social media.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing, because when it comes to history, a lot of things are lost because things weren't televised and things weren't known and things weren't in the media news like they are now.
Yeah, and now media basically starts that revolution, you can say. You know, media has a big part in it. You know, whatever the media says goes most of the time.
And I think
That's how
that
it goes.
because through social media and everything else that you can reach a bigger audience, I think that this means our revolutions will be bigger. They will be greater in numbers and kind of in strength, just because so many more people from all over know about this and can kind of voice their opinions in kind of like going back to what DJ said about not exactly having to put their lives on the line in order to state their opinion, but they can kind of join this group of we're against this and we're for this.
Yeah, and that's actually, you know, a very good way of protesting, I can say, you know, where it doesn't include any type of violent acts, you know, it kind of, I guess you can say, you know, they're back to when Martin Luther King was protesting, you know, I guess you could say that.
It's a different way to kind of protest peacefully in a way that no one is physically in harm or in danger.
In a way without consequences. I should say that.
Yeah.
Because with a lot of physical protests, there are consequences. There could be danger. There could be
you get beat up.
And even if you can lose your job for simple things like that. But when it comes to social media, you can like kind of hide, or not hide, but protect yourself in a way.
Because obviously, you know, when you tweet anything, you post anything, they can find your profile, they can kind of find you, but they'll never. They typically won't be able to kind of physically harm you or kind of like confront you about that.
Now everyone's behind the screen, you know? Everyone fights behind that screen.
Because like, who knows if it was actually the football player who posted that? What if it was like one of their sisters or something? They can always
there's always that kind of.
They can always turn that.
Or they get hacked, you know? They get hacked or something. I got hacked. Follow my new account.
You see a lot of celebrities that kind of, they get a lot of backlash, and then they'll be like, no, it was it wasn't me, it was my cat or something. It was my sister or mom or whatever.
So like while this is like you can't protest, it's also it's like if I say something and it's obviously discriminatory in some way, then I can just be like, well, I didn't mean it that way, and it's very it's a lot easier to kind of apologize and just kind of try to put it behind you instead of kind of actually facing what you're going through.
And then at the same time, we have to think about things like, what if these people are really into it, or is it just a marketing type thing?
So we're going to take a quick song break, and we will be right back with KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. Thank you so much for listening.
guys, welcome back to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. Our next segment is going to be our world news. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to actually talk about Venezuela's first election since their previous Biden election. So we're talking about the fairness of this election. Reason being that so basically the political opposition who was against who won. The Venezuela's National Electoral Council said that, that according to like the electoral votes that the team who won, that it was, it wasn't fair because the numbers were, there were 23 gubernatorial seats up for grabs, but the Maduro's party, which was the party that won against 17 against 8.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of drastic, that kind of drastic
blew
thing.
them out, yeah.
Yeah, and because Venezuela has, for the past few years has dealt with this kind of political
hasn't
corruption.
like a lot of stuff been going down in Venezuela? So many protests.
Yeah.
If you watch the Mexican news like 23,
It's over.
You're
out.
You saw a lot about it. A lot of the protests. What was going on.
And yeah, so like they, so because Venezuela kind of comes from, spurs from that, this kind of election was very like hybrid in a way, and it was kind of like very controversial. So the opposition team, who was Gerardo Blyde, he's the one who demanded for a complete audit of the election votes, and he's taking it up to the court, and that's what they're still, even though the vote has gone through, they're still checking over, wondering, was this fair? Because supposedly he accused the opposition of making the ballots confusing, quote, confusing and moving political locations in opposition of strongholds in an effort to boost pro-government candidates.
So they were kind of trying to make everything difficult to even get to and difficult to understand. That kind of, it's kind of rigged in a way.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely rigged.
That's pretty sneaky, That's
because that's kind of like if you don't give this community or this certain area access to even be able to vote, and then you're not going to get those votes.
Yeah, and they could be pro, I guess one president. Yeah, the opposition,
I mean, because think about like if half of America couldn't vote, but that half was, pro Hillary or pro Democratic, and then the other half
team
was
definitely
Trump.
going to win.
Yeah,
the other half was Republican, but those are the only people who got to vote.
Yeah, so
then it kind of looks like the entire country kind of believes in something or supports something that doesn't really represent the opinions of everyone.
And it's not a true representation of what the people want, because the whole point of voting is for people to vote for someone that the whole country sees as a fit leader.
Yeah.
And if the whole country does not agree on something, or the whole country doesn't get the chance to agree on something, then you're going to get an outcome that everybody is not popular with. Not everybody won't be popular with, even if everybody votes. But in this case, these people can't even share their voice. These people can't even have the right to choose.
And that's why so many protests, went on, because they just weren't being heard, and that I guess you can say that's a very vital part of any government, where everyone has a voice, everyone should have a voice,
Because kind of like DJ was trying to say, obviously there's only be one winner. So not everyone's gonna get it their way. But at least you should be able to say, well, this is what I want, even if it's not what everyone else wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you don't even get the opportunity to do that, then I think that that you can't really count like the winner, kind of.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
There is no, he really didn't win,
Yeah.
But cheaters never win.
In the long run, no. And then something I also want to point out is that, a lot of people, there's kind of like the people saying like, yeah, it might have been kind of unfair, even though it's not like really like, it wasn't like a full like a wrongdoing. But a lot of people in Venezuela are, like a lot of the citizens are making that much big of a deal, because compared to their previous election that was very controversial and resulted in a lot of deaths.
Yeah,
and a lot of like political
leaders.
It was like
tear gas everywhere.
Yeah. A lot of people are like, is it that big of a
crazy.
deal when that to question, their like what do you think?
The government.
I think if you don't like something, you shouldn't settle just because it was better than it was the first time.
Yeah.
Like if we had Trump is our president now, and if we have a president that's kind of just like Trump but a little less not like him, we shouldn't settle just because he isn't Trump. You know,
Yeah,
we should still fight for what we want. And
Yeah.
I think that in a place such as Venezuela, where people can't vote, but like women's rights and civil rights, those people couldn't vote at the time, and it took a long time for them to get changed because they didn't have political leaders or people up there to fight for them. And when you don't have people up there to fight for you, it's
Nothing
kind of harder
changes.
to affect change, and it's going to take a long time. Now, eventually, you will get people up there, but until then, they have to protest and they have to do things on their own without a real true leader.
Yeah, and do you think this can actually spark up a rebellion in Venezuela? Like, I mean,
I don't know, because I feel like
or do you think it's too late to have something
I
like
think
a
it's kinda too
revolutionary
late.
war? You know?
and I think the fact that this election didn't result a lot of death, like for the first time, obviously, some people are being complacent with this, and some people are, like, no, this shouldn't, this isn't right. I
Yeah.
think overall, a lot of the people in Venezuela are kind of just thinking that this didn't lead into something worse, like it's previously been. And then,
Oh yeah. So some as we move on, didn't you actually have a topic where Steve Hawking how the thesis his thesis was published?
Yeah, so Steve Hawkins, he's a physicist, a well-known physicist. He's almost like our Albert Einstein of our generation.
Oh really?
Cambridge University, which is where he got his PhD, released his thesis last week. And I think what the big thing is that he's like such a monumental scientist. It's like almost like reading an autobiography of Albert Einstein. Like everyone's gonna be wanting to read that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
And he made this thesis in the 60s. I mean, compared to now, we're in 2017, almost like over like 50 years.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's a big
Almost
thing.
60 years, yeah.
And I think it's also very enticing for a lot of people because it's like, like what was the work of this young-minded like scientist?
Yeah.
Like, what did he think back then, as opposed to what actually has happened, or what are we
Yeah.
still trying to figure out that he might have thought of, 60 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just crazy to think, and I actually haven't heard about him. Actually, I can say I haven't heard about him, but
Yeah.
if he's Albert Einstein.
Stephen Hawking is a very famous scientist, and I think that his opinions are scientifically based. And I think that a lot of the challenges with a lot of science is religion. And I think religion has something to play with it, because people feel like, well, the Bible says this or the Torah says this, and so it's kind of like battling against him. And I think his ways are not the most important, but they're very idealistic, and I think people will be open to read it to see his point of view on things.
Because his basically in his thesis, what he talks about is like the reason or like the description of the Big Bang Theory. Because at that time there was another theory. It was called like the meteor wave theory. That it had nothing to do with the Big Bang Theory, and he was kind of like the first scientist who kind of brought that into like occurrence and made it well known and made it something viable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also a lot of people are coming from, because like everyone talks about the Big Bang Theory, but a lot of people don't know really about it because they hear it from like smaller news sources,
or they even hear from TV shows, stuff like that.
And I think when it
TV
when it comes to like Steve Hawkins talking about what the Big Bang Theory is, talking about like where we came from, and because he's such like an important figure in like the science community, it's almost like that is the truth, like what he speaks about.
Yeah, and actually I was going to go back to what DJ said about this whole religion and science. They actually said that if back then they didn't have this whole religion movement that they had at one point, they say that science would have been so much better. Like we would have had we would have had so many more advancements.
Yeah, because I feel like we've been kind of always dragged by the religion thing.
Yeah.
But then I think that's a good thing, because without religion, whatever kind of religion you are, I think what religion kind of brings to the table when you discuss these topics is you discuss like the ethics
and
of
the social
science.
aspect of science. Yeah.
And I think that's also important, because like when you're advancing in science, we also have to consider the aspects of ethics within your advancements.
And I think that even if you're not majoring in any kind of science, or if you don't really know much about this like very famous scientist, I think that kind of his talk about the Big Bang Theory is kind of interesting to almost anyone, because no matter what you believe in or what you're you're studying or anything like that, everyone kind of, I think, wants to know where they came from.
Yeah. I was actually gonna everyone had the same mindset. Hey.
But the question is, do you think that someone? I feel like do you think there's some scientists out there who can believe in both religion and science?
There actually is.
Because I feel like science shouldn't cancel out religion and religion should cancel out science. I think that religion tells you what happens, and I think that science is kind of like the explanation behind it.
And I actually, there's actually scientists that are actually, the only explanation I can really have is for Christian scientists, because at some point in the Bible, there's a part where it doesn't say any specific dates. It doesn't have a time period. Yes. So during that time period, that's where scientists fill it in. That's wherever they try and find that filler.
I think there is a possibility that science and religion can coexist.
Yeah. So like for example, speaking in the Bible, it says how Earth came to be. There were 7 days where God created it, and I feel like with science, the portion they say well it took millions of years, not just 7 days, but 7 days may not be like literally 7 days, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was more like a figurative way.
Oh,
so
I think it's
like
it's like a chronological order. It's he did this, and if that's kind of, if you believe in that kind of God, that's what you should take it as, not very literally.
The Bible in general, it's not a like a, if you see it, that's what it means. It's more like a symbolic, very symbolism type.
Every story has a symbol to it. Every story has something more.
And you take it your own way, but this is the moral of the story. This is the theme, the lesson learned.
A lot of people that practice the same religion have different views and values and opinions about a lot of different kind of subjects that are mentioned in the Bible. So obviously there's some people that take everything literally as it is, and some people don't take it as much as what the Bible says I can't do.
But do you think that where we come from matters, or do you think that it's just something that we're trying to fill?
I'm kind of interested in it just because obviously we're here and we exist and all of that.
Like how does that happen? We're here talking on KSBM radio.
Yeah, what exactly had to happen in order for Earth to be created and for to sustain life for as long as it has, and to hold all of us and to have the resources that it takes to help all of us survive.
I just want that question to be answered and explained to me. How did we all happen?
Yeah, exactly. What went to it?
And I think as people, for us to progress, well, they always tell us, don't look at the past, live in the future. I think we always have to know where we come from to progress as humans. And I think while we're talking about, that the fact that this thesis was actually, he made it during the 60s while he was getting his PhD. The fact that it was brought up right now, in this time period, I think it was ideal because since it was such a controversial in the 60s, right now I feel like people are able to blend in science and religion together. That's why Cambridge decided to publish this.
Because obviously our views and on religion and religion as different groups has progressed, I would like to say, over the past 60 years.
We've actually been better about it,
So they can kind of look at this thesis and say, well, even back then, he believed that this is how we could mesh them together. This is how this whole thing kind of happened. Yeah. So now in 2017, with the views and the progress that we've made, we can now more see exactly if this is possible.
And we take it more as just his point of view, and we won't take it as so offensive.
Yeah, it's not well, he said this in the 60s, and so now that happened. That's what it was.
I think believing in something higher, no matter what religion you are in, believing in something higher kind of gives you a sense of comfort because you don't have all that stress on you. Because I feel like with the big question like this, it's so stressful, and I think that believing in something higher kind of gives you relief of what
it does. And that's actually there's a lot of many controversial topics about that, but I feel that is one of the major thing in someone's life. One must have a higher being, one must have somebody who is watching over them,
It's just not about you. You always, you're created by the surroundings that you are.
Yeah, and that's really how I feel. And so actually I wanted to talk to you guys about the Brazil daycare that was set on fire by a security guard. So what do you guys thought about that?
My thing is, as a security guard, how what are the codes of conduct, the requirements for these security guards to work in these daycares. Cause
I actually did not think about that.
How does this even go to the point where like a guard, someone that works with children?
Because as a security guard, your whole job and your whole purpose of being there is to protect the people in the area or in the facility that you're in.
But
so to have a security guard come in and cause this kind of damage, I think like.
How do you think the kids are gonna feel like, when they get older, you think they're gonna have like trust issues?
Well, I mean, when you're a kid, you obviously know like, oh, I go to daycare and then I go home and that's really all your life is. You don't really think about like, this could happen or that could happen. So I think it kind of takes away some of their innocence away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this was a place where they're supposed to, be safe and like learn, just play with each other and like it gets to interact with different kids. And suddenly, all of that, it's just
set on fire.
Yeah, and they're kids, so they shouldn't be taught, that this can be taken away from you this quickly. But it was, and that's gonna scar them, I think, no matter how young they are.
Yeah, and that's actually true. I feel that that's really gonna have an impact in their lives, and poor kids, like God, hopefully they made it out alive, and I feel that it will have a lot of impact in their childhood, their trauma.
At the same time, it's not just impact on the children, it's impact on the parents.
Oh,
because these daycares are set up to where parents are willing to work or willing to do whatever they have to do because their child is at daycare. So it lets them, provide for the kid and watch over the kid in a safe place.
Yeah.
And without that daycare, what can they do? Because I feel like the whole point of the daycare is to watch your kid, and that means that they may not have somebody at home watching them, or they might not have a grandparent that can watch them.
Yeah.
So that's why they choose daycare. And so without that, it's like, what do they do?
Yeah, so what are they going to do? What are the parents going to do? As now, even the parents are going to have trust issues,
because they think, I'm going to leave my child here, and obviously that's going to be hard because this is my child, and I love them and want them to be safe.
Yeah.
But I trust this facility and these people.
I trust this
and then all of a sudden, that's taken away from them too as parents.
Yeah. Sometimes daycares can be sort of like a supply and demand type situation. So if one daycare goes out, that means there's a lot of kids that need to be watched over.
Yeah.
So they will resort to other daycares, but at the same time, do you think prices will go up?
Oh yeah, that could be the business of that whole situation. Of that whole situation. Yeah, now as you can even start your own daycare there. Or you can that could be a little thought.
But something else I want to bring in, when you bring the parents into this, when the parents look at the situation, are you going to blame the daycare or are you going to blame the security guard? Because wherever you go, you don't know, it could be like the top-notch daycare of the city or whatever.
Yeah.
But you never really know who works there, what kind of people that are there, and then you have to question, it's not the daycare's fault, and this can happen wherever.
And to kind of add on to what you're saying, even if this daycare did, do background checks and try to make sure that the people that they were hiring and that were going to be in their facility were safe and they were kind of going to be okay around these children, I think that this kind of thing, I don't know if you can predict this kind of thing. When they were interviewing him or when he was hired to be security guard, no one ever thought that this could happen, that this would happen.
No one, because at the end of the day, no one really knows the motives of everyone else.
And you don't, even if you try to have mental health checks or anything like that for your faculty, there's really no way to tell when someone's going to snap or going to do something like this.
Because of something they experienced that day.
And do you think, he had a mental problem? What do you guys thought on it?
If he does, and even if he doesn't have a mental problem, I hope he gets help, because to do something like that, to damage a lot of kids, even if it wasn't kids, but kids are so innocent and they haven't really done anything wrong in the world. So I feel like to take somebody's life in general, I think that's a bad thing. And anybody, if they were mentally right or not, they should get help regardless.
Yeah, and I think obviously something wasn't mentally okay there in that in that moment when he was doing this. But I don't think that when you kind of try to put a label on what happened there, where it's like, oh, he had depression, he had bipolar. When you try to put a label or something like that, that's kind of where the stigma around mental health kind of gets worse, because you think, well, now everyone with that kind of disorder is going to do something like this.
And then also, like, you have to think about what about your safety from now on. So do other security guards feel like they have a part in this, or do they do other background checks and other security guards? You know, like what will happen now?
What are the measures going to be? What do you guys think the measures are going to be in Brazil now, like for a security guard?
Because I mean, it's kind of like what we've been saying. You can't really predict what's gonna happen, so I don't know if they can change anything.
I mean, what can you really do?
It's all just you hope nothing goes wrong and that this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And when it does,
hopefully they don't have a bad day, right?
And obviously when this does, you know, it's very sad and it's disheartening. But I don't know what you can do.
Yeah, and like I mean, I can see where you're coming from, and I do feel that like as DJ said, I do feel that he needs help. You know, I do hope he gets the help he needs so he doesn't set another school on fire.
And at the same time, if something like this were to happen in America, all the daycares would be, you know, the prices would go up, and then you have to think again, like, the way America works, I think we will be in a situation to where we actually put up more daycares to help kids and students and things like that. I think we become more of a national thing, and we'll become more aware of this situation, and we'll be willing to help. So I think, like, in Brazil, because of their, like, the way they're set up and their money,
the story gets lost.
Yeah, the story gets, not only does the story get lost, but they don't get the help that they need. And I feel like if it were America, we could help them in, like,
If it was America, it'd be probably a lot bigger of a story than it was in Brazil.
And how do you guys actually think America can actually help, you know, with this situation?
I don't know if this is necessarily something that as a country America can help with. I think this is more of just, we are now made more aware that this is a possibility, and we're going to do whatever we can to help our country and to make sure that our kids are safe. Because they can't just go to Brazil and hire our own security guards there, because that's not going to help anything. There's still going to be that same possibility and risk.
Yeah. And
I think I mean, it's kind of sad, but like in these kind of third world countries, like the story just gets lost, and I don't know, like I feel like a lot of these families can't sue like some kind of big company, or they don't have like the resources to like sue this daycare, this this place or whatever.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the not just being scared of like the regiments or the requirements that daycares have, but just like you never know who you're gonna encounter, and people might have a bad day.
Be nice people.
So I feel like they're just gonna have to be safer in general. So
thank you so much for listening to KSBM Voice Townview. We'll be right back after a very quick sound break.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. And we're going to start getting into our next segment, which is national news. And that was my job this week, so I was pretty excited. I got some pretty good stories. But first, I wanted to add, I actually like these songs. These songs are pretty good, you know? All right, I don't know about the Zane, but...
I mean...
Okay, so getting to our first topic, I want to talk to you guys about a big controversial topic that I thought was controversial about Maisha Johnson, who is the widow of Sergeant Ladavie Johnson, and she said that Trump made her cry, I guess, because she was actually Trump called her, telling her about how her husband died, you know, and yeah, that it actually made her cry, you know, and the reason for that was because she quoted that he didn't remember his name, you know, according to CNN. That's what she was saying, that, you know,
and he obviously if even she can tell that from a phone call, then he made it very obvious to her that he didn't know.
And actually, you know, I'm still quoting her. She says that he said that the only reason he knew his name was because he had his file in front of him.
And he still can't even get to the name,
right. Yeah, so how does that make you feel about our president, you know? How does that make you feel about our president?
Well, I think that the way he delivered it could have been different, but at the same time, I feel like she was still going to cry because the information is the same. Like, if your husband can't remember his name, then that means
if
he
your
probably
husband can't remember his
name.
The president, yeah.
If the president can't remember his name, then it's just, you know, something that you have to work on, you know, but I feel like in this situation, she has to move forward and her family has to be there for her. So, you know, I have to understand, even though it is Donald Trump, the president is such a busy man.
Yeah, I'm like, imagine all the things that he's thinking about while he's commencing this speech or whatever, this phone call. Like, his schedule starts at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, till
and he has, you know, to deal with obviously everything that goes on in our entire country, and then, but I think that he has come out in different speeches and has prided himself on, calling all of these widows and making sure that everyone knew how much he appreciated, you know, their significant others' sacrifices and how they gave their lives to fight for this country and for him and for his rights. But I think that if you are going to take time out of your busy schedule to do this, you should do it right.
Yeah, you should do it right. And, you know, actually, she's actually pregnant, with his baby. And you know what's with the other, I guess you can say, messed up part is that the government isn't actually letting her see her husband.
Like the actual body?
Yeah, they're not letting. Yeah, according to CNN, you know, she had an interview. I actually don't know with who. Don't quote me on that. But she had an interview that was posted in CNN. You know, and there she was saying that they actually didn't let her see her husband's body. Yeah, and what do you guys thought about that? Do you guys have any conspiracy theories, you know, anything like that?
I think a lot of the times when that happens is because, like, the body is left in, like,
shambles.
Yeah.
And he's deteriorated too much to where you can't really see him.
You don't want to see something like...
And at a point in time like this, I think they probably will let her see the body, but not now when she's in a very vulnerable and emotional state.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to probably give her more time to see the body instead of now, because if she sees it now, she's just going to fall into pieces.
And I don't think it's...
I feel like she should.
But I don't think it's the government trying to say, we're trying to take your husband away from you and hide him from you, or it might not even be your husband, or anything like that.
They're just trying to give her time.
I think it's more for her safety than she realizes right now.
You think so? I actually disagree. You know, I in my opinion, I disagree. I feel that she should be able to see. Yeah, you know, who I would.
I mean, but they're not gonna say that she's never gonna see the body, just not for now. And maybe they're trying to prepare the body, or like trying to make him, because he was in the army, so maybe they have to do some things to honor him or go through a certain set of things for her to see the body, because he was in the army.
And I think that obviously I do think that she should be able to see him just because it's her choice and that is her husband. But I don't think that the government is trying to hide him away from her or trying to take that away from her, because it's like a big conspiracy.
I think it's all a process. for her, like,
Yeah, I
she's
think-
still in that grief that everything's kind of hitting her, especially because she's pregnant too.
Yeah, so imagine her hormones, you know? Imagine her hormones. That's what I'm thinking of. And so, the next topic that I wanted to talk to you guys about is actually Ohio State being sued over the refusal to let a white nationalist speak in their university. And it's actually Richard Spencer, I'm sorry. He is an associate and organizer of campus tours for white nationalists. So what do you guys thoughts about that? About Ohio State not letting them? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's wrong?
I don't think he can sue them because even though it's the sort of freedom of speech thing, you can't get mad when somebody doesn't let you speak there. They're not saying you can't say that. They're just saying we won't allow you to say it here. And I think he knows what risk he took when he asked if he could speak there. Because if you ask for something, there's a 50% chance they could say yes, and there's another 50% chance they could say no. And so I think because he got the no, he's upset, but you can't be upset for them saying no because you knew that they could say it. So he can't sue for something as simple as that. And I feel like Ohio is in a state where they don't want to risk any of their students' lives or anybody on campus.
And I'll actually agree with you on that. You know, I see that Ohio State is trying to regard everyone's lives, you know, thinking about, you know, the better, you know,
because if a riot breaks out, students could get seriously hurt, and I don't think Ohio wants to have any of that bloodshed on their hands.
And imagine
when they could have just prevented the problem from the first place from the start.
And imagine the cost too. You know, you also have to think about money wise. You know, all that security, it costs money. You know,
so this could turn out into like some sort of a protest outbreak.
Yeah, because obviously this is such a big and obviously people that are for and against it have very strong opinions, and they're going to show them.
You know, think of all that tuition money the college is gonna lose. No, I'm just kidding.
And so obviously I don't think this is. I think this is Ohio State trying to stay. You know,
neutral.
we don't want any part of this. So they're not trying to attack him because of what he believes, but I think it's also just we don't want that at our university, or we don't want to try to give you that platform to where you could potentially put our students in harm, because that's. Really,
and our money, don't they?
And it does. I don't think that, and I think any college that obviously they're gonna have their beliefs, and like every individual that works there is gonna have their beliefs. But ultimately, you exist to help people, to help these students get a degree and to kind of find their way. And so I think that that's their main priority is these students and their safety. And so obviously, I don't think this is anything about what Ohio State believes, but more so they're just trying to stop a problem before it starts.
Yeah, and actually, a little quick fact that you know how I was telling you guys how they can lose money. You know, he actually talked in OSU, you know, which is in Florida, you know, and so whenever in Gainesville, Florida, he actually talked in Gainesville, Florida, and the Florida governor actually had to. He had to declare a state of emergency, and apparently the cost got up to 600,000? Yeah, it actually got up to 600,000.
Because of people that were protesting and rioting?
Yeah, and the security actually cost $600,000.
The security is expensive.
Yeah, because obviously,
calling the SWAT is not for free.
If there's even potential for a riot or a huge protest to break out, you want to try to minimize the damage to obviously, the community, but also to each other, to all of the different people. So you're gonna try that even if there wasn't a protest, this would still cost Ohio State money. Because they would try to like I've been trying to say, they're trying to protect their students, and they're also going to try to make sure that that the least amount of damage is caused, even if there's no plan of a riot. There's still always the potential they'd have to spend money for.
I think there's going to be a plan of a riot. I mean, it's just bound to happen. There's people who's going to disagree, and there's people who don't want that to happen. Yeah. So even if they did let them speak, there is a riot going to happen.
I guess I can say too that I actually dislike the idea that, his freedom of speech is being, brought back a little bit. I guess you can say that.
You can still do that somewhere else, though.
He's still allowed to have his opinions and to speak them, but they're just not at Ohio State University.
That was made clear by Ohio State, you just can't do that. And so, as we, talk about the next topic, I wanted to tell you guys about a dad who was killed by a rock thrown off an overpass. What words can you say to explain this, I think this was the craziest story I found,
He was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's just, obviously anytime someone dies, especially someone that has a child and has that kind of responsibility, it is sad. But I think that this is especially kind of disheartening just because this didn't have to happen.
What do you tell the kids,
These were just
how?
It's like a bunch of teenagers were bored and they started throwing rocks on the underpass.
I actually didn't get to tell you guys that. Yeah, it was teenagers who threw it, and apparently many of them are in custody right now. And I haven't heard anything other than that. It actually didn't say it. I couldn't find anything.
And because they're teenagers, like, what kind of repercussions should they face?
I
what
think
charges should
they
face?
should be.
Charged like they were an adult.
Because I don't think
so. They should be charged like they're an adult.
I don't think this can be considered murder because I know that for murder it has to be kind of like.
Well, there's different.
It has
kinds
to be pre-planned, and then that's the difference between manslaughter and murder. But I definitely think they should be charged with at least manslaughter just because he did die and they had the intent. They're all teenagers. They understand.
They actually didn't have the intent of killing someone.
But they understand that if I take this rock and I throw it over this where there are cars, I understand that there is the possibility that someone's going to die and someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah, and imagine the size of the rock. Not only that, think of I actually saw the rock.
It's not like a little pebble or nothing.
Yeah, it was.
Not even that's okay.
That's what she said. But yeah, and it was actually huge, and it broke through the windshield. So they must have thrown it with good force, whoever it was probably played football.
So I think they should be tried as adults because they understood that what they're doing was wrong and they understood that there could have been danger and there was, and they should have to face the consequences for it.
And I think what's also worse is that this wasn't just like an action held by a teenager. It was like several teenagers. What, four teenagers?
Teenagers. Throwing rocks. In their right mind is gonna throw a rock over an overpass. Like, let's be serious.
Yeah, and I think the worst part about it is that he actually had a kid. He actually had a 5-year-old son. So.
What if the child was in that car?
Oh
the child would have died too.
The child would have died too.
You think the child would have died?
Well, if he's driving and
he's driving,
so then you don't have control over anything, and you don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously something had to I don't understand how this could have been okay in anyone's mind because obviously there was a number of teenagers up there and they all were like, yeah, let's do this, dude. It's like this is cool. We're gonna this is gonna be so much fun.
And the thing with teenagers is like people try to give them slack because they're teenagers. But I feel like if you do things like you're an adult, then you should have consequences like you're an adult.
Yeah.
Like you can't do adult things and then try to get it slap him.
Just because I'm a teenager.
This could have been a lot worse too, because it reports that there were other vehicles who were reported.
Oh yeah,
to be hit by rocks. So what if what if something else had happened? What if other cars had crashed as well, and it would have just been a big commotion? Would those teenagers be charged the same way?
I think, but I think that if the number of deaths, number of injuries would be larger, I think that the charges would be greater.
Yeah.
Just because, but I think that they should still have to spend jail time and have to deal with that just because.
Yeah, no, of course.
Their age doesn't mean that this is okay. Doesn't mean that this is we'll just no, and then that's it. Yeah, it's
actually hit you. Did you guys hear the smack?
Personally, I don't feel sorry for them because they know what's happening. Like, if I see somebody going in danger, if I see rocks going over, somebody could get hurt.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like the guilt alone shouldn't guilty. And I've heard stories of a lot of things that kids have done or teenagers have done in the past, and
and it actually happened to me. I was in a bus ride, and they threw a rock at the bus, and it didn't break the window, but it actually left a crack. It was a big bus, it was just a tiny brick, and it's just crazy to think that teenagers just do that, for fun.
People should always remember to
Thank you so much for listening to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. We'll be right back. I was trying to get it.
TJ, the shipment said you look bored. Could you just like? Oh.
Yeah, dude. I did it one thing.
Hi, welcome back to KSBM Radio. So you guys know that the fair was this month.
Yeah.
So, well, last month I should say. So it's pretty fun.
It's actually done for, right? Oh my God. Till next year fair.
First season goes by real fast.
Yes.
Well, I'm actually going back to the fair because of the Cody Johnson. Do you guys know who Cody Johnson is? Country singer. You guys
No.
you guys
But correct me if I'm wrong, but the Dallas police officer Isla Casas was on duty at the fair on October 8th, and she was flagged down by somebody for a medical emergency.
Oh, really?
So what had happened was that a baby was, I guess, suffocating, or she was in help. She was in need, and the officer gave her CPR on a grassed area, and then waited until the paramedics arrived. So I feel like without her help, the baby could have died. So she saved the life that day at the fair, and so I guess
she probably saved more. You don't think so? Like, you know, probably if she is an officer, you know, she'll probably.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, at this situation, I feel like she really did a good deed, and I think that you know, because of what she did, she should really be rewarded, especially for some places busy as the fair, because you know, when you catch the fair on a really crowded day,
you can't even see anything. You know,
it's really hard to get help, and it's really hard to get the paramedics out there because of the people walking and things like that.
You're gonna have a big old speaker, you know, doing the little siren sound, you know.
So I guess those minutes matter, and so, you know, minutes later the baby could have been dead, but with her help, she's alive now. So I thank her for her duty.
Yeah, like I mean, I thank her too. You know, I think all my officers, you know, even if they're good or bad, you know, shouting them out right here, you know. But yeah, I can say that she really did do a good deed. You know, if it wasn't for her, you know, the baby could have died. You know, the baby maybe would have fallen. You know, couldn't broken something. You know, those are my thoughts on it. What about you guys?
I think that it was very fortunate that all of this happened the way it did, because like everyone's been saying, the fair is obviously a very crowded place, and that the people at the fair and the number of security guards are heavily outnumbered.
Yeah.
So I think that somehow, somewhere, everything just went right to where, you know, that the parents were able to get help and seek attention, and then that the officer they went to actually, you know, was CPR certified and knew what to do and took action very quickly.
Yeah, and that's actually, that's
and the baby was an infant. It wasn't like, you know, like 9 months.
Yeah.
She was like probably just born.
Oh, really?
And I know that too.
Yeah, and it doesn't know what it has to do, you know.
Yeah, because CPR for like a teenager and CPR for a very small baby are very different, because you can't be as
the same pressure on
yeah.
them.
But at the same time,
and it's a risk. It's a larger risk when it's an infant.
Yeah.
At the same time, I feel like because she was an infant, I blame the mother for the incident, not because she was unresponsive, but for the fact that you don't bring a baby out to someplace like the fair, someplace where
if it's barely born, you know, like I get it, you know, you want to go to the fair, but
I mean, and some things that the mother you can't do anymore. Well, not anymore, but some things you have to take into precaution.
Or you probably can, but maybe for just 1 hour, 2 hours, and then you have to
during the day, not during like, you know, when everyone goes.
Yeah, it has to. You really have to put everything into consideration once you're a mother, you know.
Yeah,
I can't relate.
If she really wanted to go to the fair, you know, because the baby's not gonna remember stuff at the fair. So what's the baby gonna do at the fair? Just sit there
that's true.
In the
like,
so really,
do you guys count that? Do you guys actually count that? Like, if
mean?
you go to a vacation when you were like so little that you don't even remember?
No.
Do you guys count that? I don't count that.
I mean, at this point, I think it was the mother. She should have gone by herself, you know. At least have somebody watch her, or maybe just not have gone.
Maybe
you know,
she
take that
wasn't
sacrifice because she's a mom. That sacrifice you have to make, and I think the mom has to understand that. But luckily, the officer was there to help her that day.
And something else I want to bring about is that, because I feel like, you know, there is the big thing about the state fair having to pay these police officers overtime, and it was like, you know, this thing about who's going to pay for these officers. Is it really, do we need that many officers at the state fair? And I think this kind of situation kind of shows that, you know, these situations, they're not common, but they can happen, because, you know, what can happen will happen. And
I'm liking these points you're bringing up. These are good.
I think this just shows that this is what, you know, it's a big reason, and it's so important that we pay these officers, you know, a well wage, you know, when they work overtime.
You know, because police officers aren't just there to stop fights or to, you know, stop shooting, things like that. It's, you know, it's just, they're there to protect and to serve, and no matter what kind of way that might be.
Yeah.
So I think that this yeah, like you said,
So I
it
know,
really shows that they're
that
important.
domestic violence is a really bad thing that is all across America, not just America, but in worldwide, just in general.
Yeah.
But to help domestic violence victims, a couple in North Texas are willing to pay for a house for these victims. It can house up to 12 families, and they said that it could be built by the end of this year.
Ooh.
And
How rich are they? How rich are they?
Well, I mean, it's not about money at this point. It's just about the help that they can do.
And this might just be a cause that they very much care about, so they put a lot of their savings and work into that.
No, well, I was just thinking of that meme, you know, the one. They got money.
So Anita and LaTroy Hawkins, you know, they donated their house, and they donated it to a foundation called Women Called Moses. So I think that, you know, this foundation will be very helpful for the house, because, you know, women need a place to recover for their
Yeah, that's something very big.
And not just the women are affected, but the children involved are affected too.
That's so much I guess that's something that can help with emotional support, you know.
And I think also that the reason, you know, the way that they kind of like situated this house is that this isn't just a house for one family. It's a house that is including, you know, 12 that can suit up to 12 other families that are dealing with the same kind of adversities, the same kind of hardships.
They can talk to it about each other.
Yeah,
you know, you could go
and in that kind of environment, it's also not just nurturing, but very they kind of feed off of each other's like
strength.
Hardship. Strengths as well.
I like that.
Because that's why people that are going through any kind of difficulty, not just like domestic violence, like victims, they kind of find each other, because that no one else is really going to understand what you are feeling and what it like they can kind of you can kind of imagine what it'd be like to live in a household like that, but no one's really gonna know what it feels like to be in a situation other than someone who's been in it themselves.
And then specifically, like, you know, this house is gonna provide, you know, an advocacy for crisis counseling. But you know, obviously that's a given. That's really good. But you know, those counselors, have they gone through something like that? Can they relate to those people? I think it's just great.
I think they can give them advice, but I don't think they can really understand what they're going to. And so I think with situations like these, it's most important that they're there for each other, and not just them, but their families are there for them too. Because it's something big to deal with, not just for the women, like I said before, but for the children as well. Because it's hard to see, you know, something like that happen. You can't do anything about it. Yeah,
and I actually like that. You know, it just creates support, you know, for everyone.
All right, so thank you for joining us. We'll be back in a minute.
But I thought it was funny because she's 10 years accuser to me. I was like, yeah, but you're right. Yeah, that's it.
She probably you're just there.
Hey guys, so welcome back to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. And okay, so we're gonna go straight into sports, and I actually got that again, you know. I actually got that again. So let's see what we have for you guys today. And so our first topic is Michigan's Labor Hill apologizes for flipping off the crowd. Yeah, and so I thought that was pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
And so many apologies are going on lately, you know. Like everyone's just feeling bad because, you know, the whole world is seeing who they are, you know. And so Hill, he's a sophomore. He's actually a sophomore in college, you know. He flipped the 2 middle fingers to the crowd as both teams were shaking hands, you know, in the field.
Wait, do you know like, what prompted him to do that?
He's actually, I'm pretty sure it's because they lost, you know.
He was just upset at everyone.
Yeah, and so he actually, you know, I'm actually quoting him. He says, "I let my emotions get the best of me and learned a valuable lesson." So, you know, this just to me sounds like a little kid, you know.
I think it it goes back to him not thinking before he's acting and not remembering like that he has an audience, that he is kind of being watched.
He's
you know,
putting himself at stake, especially because he's still in college.
Yeah.
Well, I think that.
And he's a sophomore. Think about it. You know, he's still a sophomore.
I think in this situation, it's like, you know, no matter how old you are, to do something like that, it's like really
Childish.
petty. It's like really childish.
and
you know,
inappropriate. Too.
Yeah.
You know, I think that he should, you know, really like he did before. He took responsibility for his actions, and that's good. But you know, at the same time,
you still shouldn't be doing
it's
that.
just a game, you know.
Like
and he was actually.
College.
Oh yeah.
And apologies don't like erase it, so you can't just do whatever you want to.
And he was
I'm sorry for it. I let my emotions get the best of me, and then have it be okay.
It's not just the fact that you know he did it. It's the fact that the environment that you're in, because you know kids go to the game, parents go to the game, you know, grandmothers and uncles
and everyone in there is like going to that can change the way they see the team, or whether they want to buy like anything kind of merchandise from you because they don't like what you're representing.
And it's supposed to be a safe environment, not an environment where people are hated and you know booed against.
And also like a supportive environment just for the team itself. Like you don't want, you shouldn't be a sore loser. Yeah, a sore loser.
Yeah, and that's what he was. You know, and he was actually photographed whenever he did that. You know, they're like, "Gotcha," you know.
And I think that this kind of hurts his team as a whole, just because now they're going to everyone really only knows him and what he did for this, and that kind of ruins the image of everyone as a whole.
And in the article it said that he was one of the 2 defensive backs that flashed the middle finger, you know. So there was actually 2 of them that flashed the middle finger, you know. And I actually didn't hear anything of the second guy who flashed his fingers, you know. So that other guy isn't apologizing, you know.
I mean, obviously you're angry and things like that, but you still always have to take into consideration where you are, and so it's like get into the locker room and then you can do it, like get out, change or whatever you have to. But when you're in front of the crowd and in front of fans and in front of cameras and things like that, you kind of have to always be aware that everyone's watching and that it can be it can stick with you.
Do you actually think the coaches are going to let him play other games? You know,
I think they should suspend him for at least 1 game,
just for like disorderly conduct or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like disturbing. That was
you have to be a good sport, no matter how mad you get or how much you lose by. You can't do something like that. I mean, and it's just to build character, not just because you know we're suspending you because you did this. It's just to teach him a lesson and let him learn. Because if he doesn't get it, if he gets away with this, then he'll never learn from his actions.
And even if he goes on to be a big football star, whatever he does, this isn't an okay thing to do in any kind of scenario.
You can't be a hothead in any scenario.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so speaking about hot-headed, you know, so the Viking safety Andrew Sendejo is now suspended for hitting and actually giving Mike Wallace a concussion. You know, how do you guys feel about that? You know,
Jesus. A hothead.
Yeah, that's a hothead. You know,
to the head. You know, concussion.
Yeah, and actually, this isn't the first time he actually does that.
Giving a concussion to someone else or to him?
Yeah, well, basically, this wasn't the first time he was suspended for hitting somebody very hard. In week 3, according to Sports Illustrated, He was suspended for one game for violating the league's player safety rules, which basically mean he was too rough. Basically, he was too rough while playing. Like, I mean, this is football, you know.
Yeah.
This is rugby, you know. You know.
I mean, obviously, football is a very hands-on,
Yeah,
aggressive sport, but I still think there
There's
is a
also
line between
rules.
what is okay and what is not, because obviously accidents are gonna happen, and you might accidentally push too hard, something like that, and then something like concussion can happen. But if it is like
Targeted.
yeah, and if it is
Yeah.
visible that you are purposely being this hard and this aggressive, then I think there should be consequences
And
for
I
it.
think to purposely hurt a player is very bad, and it's very unsportsmanlike. Mainly
Yeah.
because the whole point of hurting players is so they can't play, so the team can lose. But at the same time, you have to think like, what if that were you? You know, would you want somebody purposely hurting you? Do you want somebody damaging your leg or giving you a concussion?
And even if you
Giving
take
you
away
a-
like the different teams, it's still a human being. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't do this to anyone,
Yeah.
regardless of if you're rivals or if you're best friends.
And you have to
Shouldn't
think about it
happen.
in all aspects. Like maybe can he
He's a
play
father
anymore,
too. You
and
know, you can even.
how long will it
yeah.
take him to recover? And you got to think of things
That's
like
his career too. Like you're not
Yeah.
just
when
just playing a game.
when something
That's
like a concussion happens, like it's very
And-
mental. So
and I
it
know
can't
that
just affect his playing lifestyle, but the way he thinks.
Concussions can
Yeah.
have a lasting effect depending on
Yeah.
how serious they are. So this could like change him forever just
Well,
because you
actually-
want to take him out of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, concussion. You know, I can say concussions don't really have an effect in your career. You know, as a football star, but it will have an effect as in whenever you're older. You know, all those concussions will come into play
Yeah.
once you are
I know
older.
that in the NFL, there's been a lot of talk about like how many
Yeah.
concussions these players are getting and what are the
Yeah.
actual long-lasting effects of it.
Yeah, and there's so many studies showing that something does happen to them. And actually, another thing I wanted to bring up about the first offense that he had was that he was fined $24,309 for that hit he had.
I mean, for that.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
for that,
millions
yeah,
of
that's what I'm
dollars.
saying. I
Yeah.
was like, that's peasant change, you know.
That's
Oh.
why it's kind of you have to take into consideration like in comparison to how much he has, because obviously that
Yeah.
to me is a lot of money,
Yeah.
but to him it's like a penny.
College.
So it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't really have much of an effect on him as it was if like this happened between two of us here.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I feel that Sendejo has really shown that he is getting a little bit too rough, too into the game, you know?
But I think it's a good reminder for him just to kind of like get his cool. I
Like,
think
take-
it's also
Yeah.
awesome that he's not like making a big deal of it, saying they shouldn't charge me. He's just
Yeah.
accepting the reality. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I did kind of play rough.
Yeah, like, I mean, I did do wrong, you know? Like, find me, whatever.
He had this-
whatever. I got
He
it.
has accepted it and is trying to move on.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to move on to our entertainment segment.
Oh,
so,
yeah, let's get
it's
into
Danny's
entertainment.
So the first story that I want to talk with you guys about is more than 20 years after her untimely death,
Uh-huh.
Mexican-American singer Selena Quintanilla will finally be getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
It's
Oh,
about
wow.
time.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, 20 years, yeah.
So just for a little background information for viewers who aren't aware of who Selena was,
Mhm.
she is considered by many to be the queen of Tejano music. She was the first Tejano artist to win a Grammy,
Yeah.
and her last album, which came out after she passed away, reached #1 on the Billboard Top
Yeah.
200 chart.
Mm-hmm.
And so her star will be the 2,622nd star on the Walk ofAme. And it'll be placed in front of Capitol Records, which is the record label that put out her first album and kind of like gave her a start. So it's also like in tribute to them believing in her that will be forever
Man,
in
I
front of them.
just gotta say, Selena, man.
I love
oh my
tribute to
God,
her.
who actually doesn't? You
Because
know,
like even after
who
her death,
doesn't?
she still holds a legacy. Like
Yeah,
and then
she
you know
held that
many people
legacy.
don't do that because like their life, the actions that they do in their daily lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Just the
And
person
she was
that
really,
she
and
was.
she was still young, and she
Yeah.
made this much of an impact still after her death.
Yeah. So imagine if she was still alive. You know,
I mean,
oh my God.
She had like a lot of top charts in the time that she was, and I think
Yeah.
that if she were to live, she would have been like
She
a
would've
huge
dominated.
big
Yeah.
star. She would have dominated the Tejano.
Yeah. Do you guys actually? Have you guys watched the movie? You know?
Yeah.
I watched the movie
who
like
hasn't,
a whole
dude?
bunch of
Everyone
times.
The one
loves
with
it.
Jennifer Lopez, no?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
It's
I
the
love
movie's a
that.
pretty good movie. Y'all should watch it. It's called
Yeah.
Selena.
And just for a
Yeah,
little more
it's amazing.
information about the actual
Amazing.
ceremony, it will take place on November 3rd, and in Los Angeles, November 3rd is going to be Honorary Selena Day within the city. Yeah,
Because you got the
so
money.
I think it's good that she's getting a star because, you know, to be so young and to have such an impact in such a very short time, I think it's
Yeah.
very revolutionary because a
Yeah.
lot of people can't do that, and for her to be one of those people, I think it's not like a reward, but it's her right to get a star.
Yeah,
You know?
I feel she should have gotten it earlier. Like, where was it at? You know, where was
She
it
should have
at?
gotten it when she passed away, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that, but as she got it now, more than 20 years after she passed away, it stands for a lot more because it shows that even after this time, she still means so much to so many
Yeah.
people.
Compared to if they had just done it right away after her death.
And then it kind of would have been like it's a pity star because
Yeah.
she's dead, but now it's because she has earned it, even though she's no longer living.
You know, I actually like that. I like that too. Yeah, that was good, guys.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
And so obviously, if not everyone can make it out to LA for the ceremony,
Yeah.
but if you want to watch, you can go to www.walkoffame.com and it will start at 6:30
Oh, really? I'm
p.m.
gonna get on that.
I have a
Oh,
live
yeah.
stream.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that way it's just to make sure that's why I really like that social media has become a big
Yeah.
part of our lives.
Yeah.
Just-
Hey, you guys. Do you guys want to go report it or? What's up?
But you have to think about things like she wasn't only good in like the musical aspect, but she was a good public figure to a lot
as a
of
role model.
She was a great role model to a lot of girls and a lot of guys out there, and she was like the gap between Spanish American. Because,
Yeah.
you know, because some people
Especially at that time, you know, when
at that point in time,
yeah.
she was a big figure, and I think to be someone like that, I think she created a big impact.
I actually do think so too.
So I'm very pleased that she's finally going to get the recognition that she has always deserved, in my opinion.
Yep.
Even though I don't listen to her music, I don't really like it because like Tejano. But I think she's always served like a good figure in the Hispanic community.
Well, like
who
for
she
me,
was,
she's
you know?
like who I grew up with, like listening
really?
to and in like the movie, like we used to watch it a lot as a family. That
Uh-huh.
kind of was like for a long time it was a person that was like that looks like me and she made it big and she did this with her life. Okay,
Yeah.
so the next thing we're gonna do is what I'm really excited for. We're gonna play a little game of true or false. So what's gonna happen
you
is
guys can look at the answers. You guys can look at
don't do that.
So
I have some statements here, and I'm going to ask my fellow hosts what I think is true or false, and then I will
Are
give
we
the answer.
time? Like, do we have a minute to guess?
I would like this as quickly as possible.
How much do you have?
Okay. I don't really know. Okay, so the first one, true or false? Justin Timberlake is scheduled to perform at the 2018 Super Bowl.
Let's go 101.
Wait, just
Just go down the line.
Okay.
Is scheduled to perform at the 2018 Super Bowl.
True.
True. I already saw it.
Oh, that's true. You already
So this one is true. Justin Timberlake made the announcement through a Twitter video that he has been scheduled. Okay, so now just give me your answer. Okay, so Twilight, the Matrix trilogy, and all seasons of How I Met Your Mother will be taken off of Netflix this month.
False.
False.
This is true.
What?
So Twilight and the Matrix trilogy went off today,
I love How I
and
Met Your
then
Mother.
on the 13th, all 9 seasons of How I Met Your Mother will be moved to Hulu,
Oh,
and they're taken off of
Why don't you
Netflix.
watch that show?
Wow.
I watched that show. It's so good. Man, get
All right.
out of here.
Here we go. True or false? Lionsgate's Jigsaw, the movie, was #1 at the box office this past weekend.
False.
False.
True.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is the 8th and latest installment in the Saw series, and it grossed over $16 million this past weekend, which was opening weekend. All right. True or false? The TV series Star Trek Discovery was canceled by CBS after only 1 season.
False.
True.
False.
This is false.
Yeah,
CBS,
Star Trek
that one
is-
right.
CBS All Access recently renewed the series for a 2nd season.
1 point.
It's okay.
I can't count them. I got so many.
All right. True or false? The family of the late crocodile hunter has stated in a recent interview that they would never return to television.
True.
They said they would never return to television. True or false?
False.
False.
This is false.
Yeah. dude,
So
I'm
they
so
recently came out that they will have a new series on Animal Planet. There's no title or much information about what it'll be about, but they have said that they will be coming back.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, Grey's Anatomy is scheduled to get another spin-off show that will be premiering soon.
Well, I love Grey's Anatomy. Hold on, I gotta think about this
That's
one.
true. True. I'm
I
going
think
with true.
true.
I say true.
So this is true, but it's a little bit different. So ABC has stated that there will be a new show revolving around the Seattle firefighters that will be coming out very soon.
Oh,
so it's a bit, so that's and so
oh,
in a very
that's cool.
in an upcoming episode of Grey's Anatomy, they will be introducing a character that will be a very important character in the
Firefighters.
in the firefighters.
That is so cool. They're gonna
You could just like mesh it together, you know?
Yeah. Like all of those Marvel TV shows, like Luke Cage and stuff. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. You know, I actually like spin-offs like that.
Yeah.
And I actually don't like Grey's Anatomy though.
Cause I know that earlier on in the early 2000s, Grey's Anatomy had a spin-off that was still revolving around doctors and hospitals. I think this is very interesting that they're trying to focus on a completely different line of work, but still like saving people in that kind of aspect.
To be honest, I'll be watching Grey's Anatomy thinking I'm a doctor. I'm like, diagnose my patient with 2 cc's of Benadryl and NyQuil. Like,
yeah.
Well, as we're finishing off our show, I foremost want to thank Mr. Holder for helping us produce this show.
Oh,
getting this put together, because without him, none of this would have
for
even
everyone.
And then I would also like to extend a huge thank you to our production and social media team for keeping the team running. We appreciate you guys so much. You guys met them early on, but we deal with them every single day, and they're amazing.
To Miss Shipman, our head coordinator.
Oh
for always setting our standards very high.
I know.
Oh yeah, super high.
And for everyone,
maybe a little bit too high.
And to everyone at the School of Business for allowing us to have this platform, this opportunity, because I don't know where else we would have gotten this.
And thank all our listeners too.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are listening, you know, stay tuned, you know, we got so much more to show you guys.
And we're gonna send out a survey. If you guys wanna give us some feedback on the show, what you guys wanna see, we'll definitely take your consideration.
Any suggestions, you know, we are more than glad. Yeah.
And so the shows will continue to be every Wednesday from 10:50 a.m. until 12:50 p.m.
Make sure to follow us
on all
Twitter,
of our social media.
Instagram, Snapchat.
So the Twitter and Instagram at KSBM_TVT. The Snapchat is SBM Townview, and the Facebook is KSBM Radio, The Voice Townview. Finally, thank you guys so much for listening, and this has been KSBM Radio, The Voice Townview.
Signing off, Adrian 5.
I'm Danny.
Sign off,
I'm BJ.
Bye. Cut it.
Good job, guys.
Like, I'll do it safe.
Good stuff. Alright.
Oh, shit.
It's a wrap. Good stuff.
Do y'all know how to save this?
Yeah.
You shot it?
No. Shouldn't be. There it goes.